Good evening to all our viewers. Welcome here at For Anglers, a digital platform that keeps fishing alive. And today we have got one of the more seasoned anglers. His name is Deon Smit, or Smitty as we know him. Smitty, welcome with us today.
Thanks very much, Werner. Nice to be with you.
Smitty, now, without giving too much away in terms of our age, we were both guys that started fishing in the 70s and had most of our competitive careers in the early 80s. So where did you start off with in terms of your fishing career?
Werner, it was in the early or late 70s that we actually started fishing, but it wasn't really completely competitive. It was very social. And then at the late 79, 80, I joined Southern Transvaal. That's when it was called Southern Transvaal, Centraal Gauteng. And I was there for, I think, 4 years before I went down to Cape Town, Langebaan. I was there for 3 years as well. And I was there, and I actually fished my first essays for Western Province. And we fished at, what's the dam's name? Kloof, what? In Paul. We fished in Paul for the first essays, and that's the last time that all the sides fished together. I think we were 18 teams that year.
Okay, great. So what did you go and do down in the Western Province? Did you recover from that since you are back? That gap in your education?
You can call it that. I actually had a very good education, and we went down, the Harvards from the Notte was closed down, and we went down to Cape Town, because all the Harvards went down there for their last stint before the Defence Force got their new Aster aeroplanes. But that was 3 great years. And I actually, we caught at Paul, and then we went to Klaserie, and then the last one was at Kwakwa in Queenstown that I fished for Western Province. So it was an experience. The kilos were a lot, that's all.
Let's just have a look at the Klaserie essays. Was that the one that you caught this one, or was it a different one? Smitty, at the Klaserie essays, you were quite fortunate. You had a very special catch. Tell us about that.
Werner, it was the second day of the essays that I caught that large carp, and it was just one of those things, you know. We were actually catching kerper and mackerel at that stage, I mean, for points as usual, and that thing was fortunate to bite on my hook, and you won't believe, on an earthworm with brown bread mixed with marook. That is, I mean, we don't even use those things today. So it was an experience.
What was the weight of that carp?
It's registered at 16.685 kilograms.
And it was an essay record?
Yes, it is. It's still standing, still today. It's still a controlled record, which is if you caught it in the essays or a league or something where it's, you know, where there's officials and what have you.
Let's just talk a little bit about that type of fishing those years, and the young anglers nowadays won't know and won't understand that type of fishing with light tackle, no ground bait on your trace. Just explain to us how you did it those days. What was it like preparing for an essays or preparing for any fishing trip? What did you take with?
The biggest thing was that you still caught very similar to what we caught today, but we weren't allowed to fish with 3 baits. We used to have to cook mealies the night before, and we used to mince them at the water or the morning before the competition, which was a bit of a schlep, and a lot of people burnt mealies, and it was just a total different. It's not as easy as today, put it that way. There weren't floats. We fished mostly millipips, worms, brown bread, Kazi dough, as always. I mean, that's the only thing we actually still use today.
The other thing that was also quite significant was we weren't allowed to use leaders. There were 2 different line classes, a light tackle and a medium tackle. So light tackle, the line was supposed to mic below 0.22 and no leaders.
That was also quite a thing, because, as you say, I think it was below 2. It was 2-1 that you had to use, which is 7 pound. So in other words, you couldn't throw as hard as what we're throwing today. I mean, We use 30 pound leaders now. We can actually cast, and the rods were hell. I've actually still got my two. Van der Heever made them for me, Jan. And I mean, we actually took them out about a couple of months ago just to go and look what man, it's incredible that the change we've gone through from there to now. Those rods were so pop and slop. When you finish casting, the ball is actually still on the floor and the rod's in the front of you. That's how it bends.
And they were all 16 foot and 14, 15, 16 foot, and they were one single pieces and nothing in the back of the bucket. It was all on top of the cars.
Yeah, everything was, as you say, everything was on top of the roof or in rod racks or whatever, and everything was 16 foot because, I mean, you had to get maximum distance. So we actually had a set of 20-foot rods at one stage, which Blue Marlin made. And it looked like a wash line that was in front of you, like, because you used to have to use 3 mixstocks for each rod, because otherwise it hanged in the water, you know. So it was an experience.
Smitty, what reels did you use in those years?
And I was actually using the Orlando's, the Grease and Young, 2 blue ones. That's what we had, and everyone used to. I mean, I think most people used center pins those days. We didn't use coffee grinders because coffee grinders was said to be inferior to those reels. But today we can see I've still got some, and it's just we try to fish with them. They sound lovely, but they're not practical.
Yeah, they are so slow, and it's 1-to-1. But I remember my first essays, I still fished with jectas, and they didn't have a pin on the front, so you had to hold the spool in your one hand and cast with the other hand from the side. Did you also fish with those jectas or those centuries in those years?
I actually never had a set of jectors, and the people that had one actually made a thing that you put into the ground that held the reel itself. But to me, that was like it was just a mission to try and do that all the time. But there were oaks that fished with it all the time, and we just fished with Orlando's, and to me that was the way to go. Actually, we still fished with I think Martin Pix or Dad made those Darias, yes, and those are I've actually also still got a set of those at this stage, but as you say, impractical for today's fishing.
Yeah, the Daria was quite nice because it had a bakelite spool and it was nicely worked off. And then later on, they started with another reel with actually a gear ratio. So then you can have the spool at a 2-to-1 gear ratio. Smitty, do you remember those reels? Those that I can't remember who made them. I think it was I can't remember.
It was actually Dave Stevenson who made those reels at the Phoenix. I've actually still got one at this stage. We use it for measuring lines. We've got it on the one side of the rod. We got a rod with 2 reel seats on, and then you put the line meter in the middle, and we actually use that as a line meter instead of the 5-meter markings at the dam. And you can do all your lines sitting in your lounge if you have to, with as long as it's got a gear ratio or something that's, you know, that it doesn't run back like the Daria or those things, then you can use it. And lots of people are actually using it now to measure their lines with.
All right, as explained to Werner on the video, on the talk, this is the system I use to mark my lines. Physically, you've got 2 reel seats on a pole or a old fishing rod, a line mate in the middle, and then all I do is I take the line, normal, put it twice around the line mate. I've actually got a hook in here so that I don't have to struggle all the time. And then you just wind until you get your distance. And if you have a look on the line mate there, you can see, coming on the side, then you can see what, that I actually turn the line mate up so that I can actually see from this side the distances. Well, that thing needs a bit of oil. And if you have a look on my reel, on the reel itself, you can see the markings coming through on the reel itself. Now these have been done, and the first line should be 85, which is going to come up now. And then show the marking on the line, the mark on the line, and then the amount on the clock is 85, and then you mark your line, and all you do to get it back is, all I do is you just take it off again, and then the big thing is with this, if you haven't got the line twist that you have, if you have two coffee grinders on either side, and your line lays exactly like it used to be. And this you can actually physically sit in your house and do it. You don't actually need the rod rest or whatever. And there you have it.
Okay, that's an interesting concept. I didn't know that. That's something that we can share with, it's a little bit of a secret, I suppose.
I don't know if it's such a secret, but in Southern, in Central, we actually got quite a few people using it because they've seen me use it, which is nice. You don't have to stand in the sun and mark your lines as such. You can literally sit in your lounge or wherever you want to and wind your lines up, because you got your reel on your one side. And the big thing is it's got no a loop that you do from a coffee grinder to a coffee grinder. So you got none of that line twist and everything, because it runs off straight.
Okay, great. Now, Smitty, if we look at how we did things then and how we do it now, what do you think the biggest progress in terms of the angling sport was?
Number one is I think you can fish more with the new technology of the rods and the reels. I think you can be more accurate because of the rods that were so limp or slop or whatever you want to call it. Your accuracy wasn't as good as it is today, and also the distance fishing. To me, that is distance and accuracy is what I think is the most important factors anyway to angling.
Okay. And that came about with leaders and the ability for us to fish leaders and proper graphite rods.
Yes, the graphite rods made a big impact. I mean, I was also one of the first oaks to get the blue marlins, I think, and then they were 16 foot as well, the first ones that came out. And I mean, we're fishing now 12 foot 6, 13 foot, and we're getting better distance with these things now because of technology than we were then, and the leaders, of course. I mean, the leaders is a big difference.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about leaders. What type of leader do you use? What thickness and the length? How do you determine the length of your leader? How do you go about?
I use a Echo Carp, which is from Awashima at this stage. It's a green line, very soft. It's 0.35. It's a bit thick. Well, people say it's a bit thick. We've had no problems with it. The big thing is it's very durable. It's a hardy line, but it's soft. And people like Lani Lategan has also actually come over. He's also using it now, and there's quite a few people that are actually using it at this stage. And the length, I'm just short of, a rod length plus about 1.5 meters. So that, I mean, I don't want a lot of turns on my reel anyway, because then the knot starts getting involved with your when the line comes off.
On the swivel end, what knot do you use?
I am using the polymer knot at this stage. I think it's called a polymer, the double at the bottom, where the double line goes. I think it's a polymer knot.
Okay, Smitty, then in terms of baits, those years, the baits that we used then, and we got quite good results, a lot of it mealie based, versus what we are doing now. What do you think is the golden thread that delivered success in those years that is still delivering success now in terms of principle, but with different baits?
Then I think, I still think, I mean, we still fish dough and well, we didn't have floats those days, but the earthworm is still one of your top baits anyway, which everyone is still using. You can't go to the dam without a Kariba worm or a snake worm. And to me, that is one of the top baits anyway. If there's one bait that I would take if one bait I could take with to the dam and I was only allowed, I would take a worm with, because to me, a worm is better than any other bait on the market.
That's actually one of the questions. So I already know an answer now coming up. In terms of dips, those years we also had a few dips, but it was like a few Moyers, caramel and vanilla. And what was your favorite dip in back in the day?
I think I think the caramel was caramel and almond. Those are the two. Well, and they were all Moyers, and I think those were the two most important things, especially millies we had in almond, and then caramel dip. So I think we still use it today in FX. So I think to me that is still the best dip on the market anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Smitty, if you look back to the years, which was your most memorable national championships that you've ever done?
I think this year, should I say, was a very special for me. It was at the Veterans Nationals, which I had three great days. So I never had three firsts, but you really had to pull out the stops because they were the old toppies can fish, and we had oaks like Johan Donald and some of the newer guys that the new guys that have come through the ranks as well, that are from Northern Transvaal and from the Free State, which are all 60s. So everyone thinks the old toppies can't fish, but they can actually fish, and it was lovely. And I've had another essays when I also won the essays at Bloemhof, also in the sloop when I was at, I think it was 2014 when I won the Masters essays, and that was also very special. But then I had three firsts, which was to me was good.
Let's just take that national championships that you won, and you had three firsts in a row. What did you do different? What came about, or what made the difference in that championship?
I think that year everything was very. You had to throw on a call, and the fish were on about 110, 115, and every morning I put in 5 to 10 big millibombs on a spot, and I fished that spot the whole day. I didn't vary from 85, 125. I fished 110, 115 the whole day, and that is where we put. Bloemhof is the fish are a bit wild, so we actually put a lot of gravel. We call gravel. It's crushed millie, the hard millies. We actually put that in our millibomb, and that keeps the fish. Once the fish come there, they stay there, and that was the difference in my eyes. And we didn't have a lot of dips on the ball. We actually only had one dip on the ball for the whole essays, and that was Baja. And you won't believe me, it was purely by accident that we found that out.
Okay, that's great. And now this year you were also on the podium at Heart's Ease. What came through there? What made the difference? So at the sloop, it was fishing at a distance on a specific spot. And what made the difference at Heart's Ease?
The elite final, it was a bit of a mixed match, because you had to fish at all these different distances. Heart's Ease is one of those dams that there's no just deep water, if you understand. It's you got sandbanks and you got a little bit of river, and the dam was low anyway, so you were fishing very close to the river, and you had to physically look for the fish. And in the practice days, it made that's what we saw. We had to look for the fish, and you had to fish up and down the whole day, like 65, 85, 115. You had to carry on the whole day looking for the fish, because they didn't stay in one spot.
Okay, now let's have some fun. I need some of your favorites or the favorite application or whatever. So just tell me in terms of If you can only pick one type of either, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions. Feed.
Plain millibomb. That's to me that's the best because I only use my product, but it's not actually on the market. I actually sell to a lot of people, shops and what have you, but I do not market it myself. But it is a pure popcorn, and then I just add chick and the gravel to it.
Favorite bait?
Favorite bait, floaties, honey floaties, soft honey floatie, and an almond dough. That to me is that's what works for me.
Okay. And you said earlier, if you have to take one bait only, it would be worms.
Could only take one bait to the dam, it would be a worm, and a Kariba worm, and because that to me is that's what works, and anything can bite on it.
2 dips.
FX for sure. I always believe if FX doesn't work, you must put more FX on. And I would say, yes, it's going to be hard. A banjo and FX. That would be my 2 top dips.
Favorite hook size?
I actually use those new scud hooks. I don't know what they call them. Ultra hooks. It's a hook I've been using for about 3 years now. I used to use Daiichi and Fianan, 08s and 1s, but we're actually on this ultra hook, and I've had a lot of success. I don't actually lose fish as often as I used to, for whatever reason. But that is what I use now.
When you are at the water and you start off a new day, what is the first thing that you would do? Let's say you're at a new dam, virgin waters, never fished there before, haven't spoken to anybody about it. How do you kick off?
Well, number one, I would fish a dough on the one hook and a floaty dough on the other hook, and then on the other rod I would use a worm for sure, and then I'd vary whatever I feel on the other hook, and I would not actually use any dips. My first cast most of the times at any dam, even the Vaal that we know, the first cast in the morning have not got dips on, because I mean you want to actually see if there's fish. You don't want to see if they're attracting. I just don't use dips in the morning.
How would you decide where to fish and what depth to, or what distance rather to start fishing?
I'm very opletent in the morning. I actually stand and watch the water quite diligently in the morning, because of you can actually see where some of the fish are. And if there's no movement in the morning, then I'd start on 85, and then I'll go one to the back on 115, and that's where I would start. But otherwise, sometimes the fish are shorter, but then I mean you can actually see them, and that's where I would start in the morning.
If you can give a little bit of advice to any young angler that would like to take the sport forward and still be fishing competitively into the 50s and 60s, what advice would you give a young angler?
I would say, what shall I say? Don't put yourself under pressure. Just go there and enjoy it. First of all, enjoy it. That to me is more important than anything. Enjoy what you're doing. It's fresh air and whatever, and just listen to the older people or to the people around you. They will help you right. I mean, if you don't catch fish today, it's one of those days. But tomorrow you'll catch again. So listen to what's going on and look what's going on around you. That's very important. I've actually got binoculars in my box, and I have a look around, and that's just one of the things.
Have you had any commentary about you spying on your neighbors from other anglers? How do they perceive that?
Actually, I've never had any problems with it. I mean, it actually looks as if you're looking around. It's not that you're looking directly at what they do. It's only if a person is really catching fish that I'll really go stand by the bucky, and then like around the door, just look what he's doing. Like concentrate on one person. If someone, and then I mean you can get an idea of what he's doing. You can't really see what they're using, but you can see what bait they're using. The floats or the doughs or the worms. And that does make a difference,
Every little piece of information makes a big difference.
I agree, and it's very important.
Okay, Smitty, last thing, you've been at home for a while now with this whole lockdown, and I can imagine that you are burning to get to the water. So what did you keep yourself busy with in the last 6 weeks plus?
Then I'll tell you, I actually don't know what to do anymore. Everything is clean. The box, everything's been tipped, redone. The traces have been redone. Everything is ready for fishing. The reels are full. They all marked. Everything is done. My garage is clean. I always say to my wife, I can go live in the garage because it's just as clean as the house now. And it's just a mission to stay at home all the time. And I think we're going to stay a lot longer if I look what's going on.
Well, I certainly hope we are not. So when you get out, where's the first place that you're going to fish?
I don't know, but we've got two dams that are very close to me. We've got Aston Lake, just like about 5 kilos from my house, and then we got Mirage Pan in Nigel. I actually fished the day before lockdown. I actually went out and fished at Mirage Dam, my son and myself, and I actually got smashed by 3 carps and big carps. They were on for about half an hour each, and they ran into the reeds because it's a bit of a dicey dam. And I mean, we're fishing 5 pounds, so we tried to keep them out of the reeds, but there was no way. They slaughtered me.
Well, you've got a score to settle when you get out, so I'm sure that's going to be in the back of your mind. Smitty, thank you for spending your time. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, and thank you for bringing a bit of history back and sharing that with our viewers.
Really a pleasure anytime, and it was a pleasure to really be on the show. Thanks a lot.
To our viewers, thank you for joining us here at Core Anglers, the digital platform that keeps fishing alive. So we'll be back tomorrow night, same place and same time. Remember, tomorrow night we are talking technical again to Yanni Steitler, and we are on a next edition of Reels. Keep safe and remember, you are awesome.